website of Mr. Maruyama Camera and Farm. In a nod to the Japanese origins of the PechaKucha night, I thought it would be apt to start with this slide. Mr. Maruyama sells fresh eggs, tea and vintage camera gear, and around this time last year I was lucky enough to buy this particular piece of equipment from him. This is an Iskorama 36, which is a German anamorphic lens manufactured probably in the 1960s, and it's become suddenly a collector's item. On a filmmakers forum last year, somebody posted some footage that he shot with this lens, and it suddenly became incredibly collectible. Now, this man might say that the acquisition of lens is like a kind of a sickness, and certainly when you see a lens like that and you don't have it, you feel sick because you want it, and you want to know how long it's going to be until you can get it, and you're probably green with envy until you do. This man might disagree. This is Henri Chrétien, a French astronomer and inventor who in the 1920s invented the first anamorphic lens, which was used in military tanks to offer a wider field of view. This photo was taken in 1956, the very year of his death, and anamorphic lenses are significant because in this slide you can see this is the 35mm negative, and an anamorphic lens squashes the image in horizontally, and when you project it afterwards, it stretches it out to give you this nice, wide, cinematic aspect ratio, like what we see in the bottom left here, 2.35:1, that we associate with Hollywood. And this was the first anamorphic Hollywood film, The Robe, released in 1953. The blurb on the bottom says, "The first motion picture in CinemaScope, the modern miracle you see without glasses." Now, in the 50s, TV was becoming very popular and people weren't going to the cinema quite as much as they used to. So Hollywood said, how can we get people back in? So the wide aspect ratio of anamorphic filmmaking was one way that they could do it. A secondary characteristic of anamorphic lenses is that they offer these beautiful lens flares and blue streaks, which are unconsciously associated with film and probably fetishized in some circles. Certainly, every film that James Cameron's ever made has featured them. But aside from lens flares, they also offer a kind of a softness and a velvety look to footage that has been shot on video to make it look a little bit more film-like. So they give video footage a kind of a more human and a more intimate kind of a feel. This is the look that you want to avoid when you're shooting a video. This is Pacific Blue from the early 90s, and it's horrible. It's just not nice. And every independent filmmaker wants their film to look like film, but they can't afford to shoot on film, so they need to shoot on video, but they're trying to emulate the looks of film, and anamorphic lenses are one way of approaching that. This is my first foray into filmmaking as an 8-year-old boy. I think the makeup artist that day was probably a little bit too enthusiastic. In fact, I think I've confiscated her bottle of Guinness, and in the next scene, which is not depicted, I tipped that bottle of Guinness over to my cousin, which was a wonderful experience for me, certainly. This is me today. I've moved behind the camera and away from the genre of slapstick comedy to a more experimental approach to filmmaking. And specifically, I've become interested in documentary filmmaking, and instead of acting something out to put on in front of the camera, trying to see what's in front of the camera already. So I've been taking a kind of an anthropological or ethnographic approach to filmmaking, which I suppose means that I just set up the camera and try to record the minutiae of everyday life and the rituals of everyday life, almost as if you were an impartial observer insofar as that is possible. And totally going against what I just said, this is an utterly conventional documentary that I made last year, which displays none of those characteristics. It's totally down to earth. This is My Beamish Boy, which was screened on RT in June. And as you can see, even though I'm a filmmaker, I've still got like a shitty old TV set with snowy reception and all the rest. This is a film that I'm working on at the moment. You may have heard the story of this man who's living on an island down in East Cork in a shack that he's built for himself down there, and this is his shack. He says that he's been unable to get appropriate housing from the local authority, and so he's moved out to this island, built a home for himself there, and is self-sufficient to a degree. Here he's chopping wood for burning on his wood stove, on which he cooks meals that he makes out of food that he catches down there. He catches some fish and sets snares for rabbits. So I've been developing a documentary with him. And in this documentary I'm using the Iskorama, that lens that I bought from Mr. Mariana, because I want to give it a kind of a filmic feel. Even though it is a video documentary, I kind of want to give it this kind of ethnographic kind of feel. I'm not doing interviews with him, I'm not doing voiceovers and reconstructions, it's simply him observing his life. 20 seconds, solve the equation. Anybody? We've got something plus something plus something equals... Okay, first, what have we got here on the left?
Irish.
Second?
Film.
Third?
Presentation. Presentation.
Board. Irish film board equals money, yeah. I've got to keep the wood from the door, so I've applied to the Irish film board for money. Now that's not me, that's just some kid that his mother thought it was a good idea to post his image on the internet, and that's not me either outside the window. It's a wolf who's not quite at the door, he's at the window, but if I was the kid I'd probably close the window and wait for him to go away. And then a bid to get the wolf away from the window, I'm putting up part of my Anamorphic Lens collection on eBay as we speak. So it was at 8 bids on Sunday evening, 150. It's finishing next Sunday at 8 o'clock at quarter past 7. And well, anyway, this isn't quite as nice as the Iskorama, but we'll see how that goes. I hope to make quite a bit of that. So I started with a website. I'm going to finish with a website. This is a plug for my website, Mike Hannon Media Photography and Video. The website is www.mikehannonmedia.com. If you need me for anamorphic sexiness or otherwise, we have the address. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike Hannon.